Hey everybody, it's the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and you are watching the Weekly Ringer here on clanofthegraywolf.com. Well, it's a little bit darker in here right now. I apologize. I'm kind of in the midst of moving a lot of stuff around. There's clearly a storm brewing outside, so if you're lightning, or you see lightning and you hear thunder in the background, you understand why it's a little bit darker in here than it normally is when I record the Weekly Ringer, but I didn't think you guys would mind that much. So what's going to go on this week? Well, I've got to rehash the question from last week about D&D editions, which is, as I expected, had a lot of great contributions from the community to talk about, a lot of really well thought out ideas, which I would never ever suspect you guys of anything any different than that. And I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about it in general, to try to maybe give you a little bit of a rundown and edition history from my own perspective, and try to come up with some answers for it. So that will be the first part, and then secondly, we've got to get to the Weekly Ringer's response to E3. And I think there might be a few questions in a row, because on the Weekly Ringer, I can only ask kind of one question. It might take on a lot of different dimensions, but what I'd really like to be able to do, guys, is to actually go and take the next couple weeks and ask about a lot of the stuff that we saw at E3. If something jumps up, great, we'll talk about it, but otherwise, we'll talk for the next couple weeks about what happened at E3. And as many of you saw, what's happened on E3 and what's being reviewed right now from what Rue has put on the site, from what Rue's experiences were at E3. So hopefully this was the first year the Clan of the Grey Wolf was at E3. Very exciting stuff, and can't wait to see what happens really in the future with that as well. All right. Now, before I jump into all of that, one of the things I want to do is, it's interesting. So you guys, I think, really enjoy the format of the Weekly Ringer, which is great. And trust me, if I stopped for each and every time someone said something negative or somebody really gave some maybe negative feedback about the Ringer, I'd probably never even shoot the thing, because you'd be constantly kind of responding. That being said, I wanted to make something clear, because I thought this time there was something a little bit misleading about the feedback that was given. And one of the comments this week was from DJB123, a contributor from before, a welcomed and valued member of the community. And guys, again, this is not to say that people should just throw derogatory or flaming stuff out there and that means I'll answer to it. I won't. I just want to make it very clear, because of my position on video games. This is a video gaming site, so I want to talk to you about just for a minute or two about what's going on in terms of my position on the issues that DJB brings up. Maybe make it a little more clear from last week, and then talk about it a little bit. So DJB123 evidently really felt like I was painting more of the, I guess what we would say, introverted folks. Now, remember what introverted and extroverted means, guys. It doesn't mean one is shy and one is outgoing, right? Introverted simply means that you take your energy from being by yourself, primarily. Extroverted means you primarily take your energy from when you're with other people. And most of us are hybrids along those lines. I had never privileged one over the other. And if I said anything that was even close to that, I apologize, although I've gone over the Weekly Ringer from last week and I haven't seen that. What I did say was that it's when I've seen my own friends and my own experience, good friends, lifelong friends, we played hours of video games together, okay? When a video game starts to take over their life to the point where they miss out on social situations, right? As in, it's always been a part of their personality that they've gone out and done things, or just been a social person, right? With me, with just friends in general, right? And then all of a sudden it kind of stops because a game takes over their life. I think you could say that for almost anything out there, drugs, really any of the vices that are out there. if somebody does anything with no kind of thought as to maybe the things that they're missing, and it takes over their life, that's an unhealthy thing. I'm not saying that those of you that are out there that don't have a ton, excuse me, a ton of social interaction are somehow, less, human, or, not good people, or I never say anything like that. I would never think that, and I would never say that. So I wanted to make that clear. But I think I want to say something too. I completely understand the opinion for what was brought up here, but DJB123 used the language of disgusting and intolerant. Now, I like to think that we do a lot of things on the Weekly Ringer that are either, flame wars, or at the very least, controversial in some way. But I've never thought of anything that I've said on here as being a disgusting and intolerant opinion. And if there's something that you really do truly find that way, then I hope that you would please send me a PM instead of putting that into the comments, because I just think that I think that kind of takes away from what all of us are doing. So just to be clear, and I have no problem in the world with DJB. You and I are straight. We're going to keep going. There's no animosity I have toward anyone in the fan base for the Ringer at all whatsoever. I love all of you guys, and I'm very thankful that you're here every single week. I would just say, I just wanted to be clear, first of all, there's no privileging of one personality type over another. I just think when something takes over one's life, no matter what it is, games, anything else, and that's all a person does because it just takes over their life so much that they would remove everything else, that's when things get dangerous. And that's all I was really trying to say. So anyway, I wanted to kind of fill that out before we moved on. Let's see. So now back to the Dungeons and Dragons conversation. As you recall, last week the question that I asked was about which D&D version or edition was the best. This is interesting. I knew there was going to be. It was a fairly simple question. Yes, it was inspired by Astolia's question in the forums. So I wanted to just get us talking about tabletop stuff again. We've been talking a lot about games. We've talked a lot about technology. I think it was time to really focus on some of the things in tabletop gaming that we haven't really had a whole lot on the site about in a while. So I'm very excited to talk to you guys and hear the community talking about tabletop games again. That was great. I want to welcome three, and I think it was only three, and they might not be new members of the community, but new commenters. I want to welcome you all to the party. We've got Volt875, a great commentary from you. Yentis, fantastic contribution as well. And I want to say one of my favorite comments that has come for the Weekly Ringer in a while, just in terms of its depth and in terms of its being very well thought out, and not that you guys shouldn't post the first thing that comes to your mind. That's why I love it. Post the first thing that comes to your mind. But KLH Aviation, just a tremendous first post. I love how well thought out that was. Really summarized not only my feelings about this, but I think most of the people that I think of that are in D&D communities, I think they would probably agree with most of what you said out there. So rather than rehash it, guys, you just go and read the comment. I think you're going to have plenty to chew on there in terms of the D&D edition wars. Now, here's my count. My count so far, if I look down, I went down the comments and just kind of tried to average it out. And it looks like second edition gets 1 vote, 3.5 gets about 4 votes, Pathfinder, which isn't even a D&D edition, gets about 3 votes, 3 or 4, and then 4th edition gets about 5 votes. So it looks like the winner from the community is 4th edition. That's kind of surprising. So let's go down what some of you said. There wasn't a whole lot of talk about 1st edition, 2nd edition, AD&D, It wasn't a whole lot of talk about that. But the talk that there was about it was that, first of all, first edition really creates what we now know as Dungeons and Dragons. There's a plenty of, history and nostalgia to be had there. But second edition becomes that kind of rule bloat territory where there's a lot going on. There's almost way too many rules to keep track of. And it becomes difficult in many ways to try to make heads or tails of what's going on in second edition. It's in our D&D podcast for the Echo Screen. We spent some time talking about the way that second edition was a little bit bloated. Third edition was a kind of great migration for myself and my friends looking to get back into D&D. When third edition came out, that really changed the ball game for us, and it became where we kind of reconnected with the game in the first true way since 2 or AD&D was out. 3.5, as many of you have said, really strikes to the core of what is good about D&D, solidly good about it, and also what really is in keeping with, I think, what is the original kind of intention of D&D in general. And it might be, depending on who you ask, the kind of most complete edition of D&D, because there's so many different ways to use third edition, or 3.5 specifically. I guess 3 and 3.5 are part of the third edition vote. In terms of fourth edition, most of you that were espousing fourth edition, including Bruce from 4E Transmission. Hey Bruce, how's it going? For those of you that are really into fourth edition, you should check out 4etransmission.com, Bruce's site. Tremendous amount of material there. I think you'll find very interesting in regard to fourth edition. But clearly Bruce's vote was with fourth. Let me just say that I expected a few more answers. But really what I get with fourth edition is that the reason that you guys like it most is because of the evangelization property of it. In that so many more people now can come and play D&D because it's fourth edition. It's so much easier to kind of help people get on board that train and help them to play the game. Could not agree more from my perspective. That's absolutely 100% true. That being said, I'm not sure that that makes it the best edition. I think there are, and this is well documented, fourth edition is much more like an MMORPG and much less like the classic D&D pen and paper RPG, right? That doesn't mean it doesn't do both of those jobs very well. It very much does, I would say. But with all of the balance issues, with all the difficulty in terms of getting all of the classes hashed out in any kind of realistic way, Bruce brings up a great point, which I think was reiterated by many of you, that it really becomes about the experience of role-playing. It's less involved with the rules, it's less involved with the roles, and it's more rolls of the dice, right? And it's more involved with the role-playing aspects of it. Many of you are going to fight me on that. I would probably fight me on that. Because I think 3.5 does a fantastic job of leaving the universe open as well. And how many dungeon masters out there, how many DMs, GMs out there wouldn't be able to change, to kind of say, I mean, many times in our campaign with Boomer, it's like, well, there's a rule. Well, I think there's a rule that says this, that allows me to jump an extra 5 feet. And then we'll, kind of look at the giant book next to us and go, you know what? Why don't you roll something to try that? And it just becomes something that happens in the meantime rather than trying to go look up one sentence in one book, which is what I think really bogged down the 3.5 and 3 and 3rd edition experience. Now, I want to talk for just a moment about Pathfinder. If I'm going to answer this question in any kind of realistic way, then I think what you guys have proven to me is that I need to play Pathfinder. Your note is well taken. We should like set up a Clan of the Grey Wolf Pathfinder event of some kind. But I am sad to say I've never played Pathfinder. I know about it because I've heard many people talk about it. I know I've seen some of the materials involved and whatnot. Pathfinder, to me, if I'm thinking about it, I'm looking at it as a kind of the best that 3.5 has to offer, with a lot of fixes. That sounds like just pure gold to me. I mean, I love 3.5. It's one of my favorites. And I love the way